The wrench slipped from Rachel's hand and clattered against the metal floor. She cursed under her breath and bent down to retrieve it, her fingers still shaking from the close call. 3 months aboard this ship, and she still jumped at every loud noise, every unexpected voice over the intercom. Rachel Kim had learned to make herself invisible. In the maintenance bay of the Horizon's Edge, she was just another human doing the work nobody else wanted. The Galactic Council transport vessel carried diplomats from a dozen different species, all heading toward some important peace summit she didn't care about. Her job was simple: fix what broke. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention. 5 years ago, she had been someone else entirely. Lieutenant Rachel Kim, Earth Defense Force, one of the best pilots in her squadron. She could make a fighter dance through asteroid fields like it was breathing. Her commanders said she had instincts that bordered on precognition. Other pilots said she was just reckless. They were both wrong. She simply understood movement in a way others didn't. Every ship had a rhythm, a way it wanted to fly. You just had to listen. Then everything fell apart. Her entire squadron died during what should have been a routine training exercise. 17 people gone in an instant, because someone leaked their flight patterns to pirates. Rachel survived only because she broke formation to check a sensor ghost. When she returned, there was nothing left but debris and accusations. The investigation was quick. Too quick. Admiral Stevens personally oversaw it, and within a week, Rachel was the scapegoat. Negligent flying, unauthorized maneuvers, failure to follow protocol. The evidence was manufactured, but it was thorough. She faced court-martial and decades in military prison, so she ran, used her savings to buy fake identification papers, and disappeared into the crowd of humans trying to find work in council space. Turned out the galaxy didn't think much of humanity. Most species saw Earth as a newcomer, barely worth noticing. Humans were good for manual labor, cleaning crews, and not much else. Perfect for someone who needed to vanish. Rachel tightened the last bolt on the coolant relay and closed the access panel. The maintenance bay stretched around her, filled with humming machinery and the smell of recycled air. Another human worked nearby, a young man named Yuki Chen who talked too much and asked too many questions. "Hey, Rachel, you ever fly anything?" Yuki called over from the hydraulic station. She kept her voice neutral. "No, why would I?" "Just wondering. You always check the pilot reports before doing repairs." "Most techs don't bother." Rachel's chest tightened. She had been sloppy, old habits bleeding through. "I like to understand what broke before I fix it. That's all." Yuki shrugged and went back to his work. Rachel forced herself to breathe normally. She couldn't afford mistakes like that. Couldn't afford anyone looking at her too closely. The ship's pilot was a Delthiri named Commander Halvos. Tall crystalline skin and an ego that filled entire rooms. He treated the human maintenance crew like furniture, barely acknowledging their existence. Last week, Rachel had fixed a navigation sensor he claimed was working fine. She found 3 separate errors in his last flight log but said nothing. It wasn't her problem. Not anymore. The intercom crackled overhead. "All maintenance personnel report to stations. Preparing for nebula transit in 30 minutes. Rachel grabbed her toolkit and headed for her assigned post near the engine compartment. The Horizon's Edge would pass through the Veil Nebula, a massive cloud of dust and ionized gas that played havoc with sensors. Tricky flying, but nothing dangerous if you knew what you were doing. She settled into her monitoring station and pulled up the diagnostics display. Everything looked normal. Fuel flow steady, cooling systems optimal, power distribution balanced. Then she noticed something odd, a tiny fluctuation in the navigation subsystem. So small it barely registered. Rachel frowned and dug deeper into the logs. There. A patch installed 2 days ago during routine maintenance. She pulled up the code. Her blood went cold. Someone had modified the failsafe protocols. When the navigation system encountered interference above a certain threshold, instead of switching to manual control, it would lock out all input for 30 seconds. In clear space, that meant nothing. In a debris field or dense nebula, 30 seconds could mean death. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage. Rachel's hands hovered over the console. She should report this. Send it up the chain of command immediately. But that meant questions. Who found it? How did a maintenance tech recognize sabotaged code? Why was she looking that deep into the system? Questions led to scrutiny. Scrutiny led to background checks. Background checks led to her fake identification falling apart. She could stay quiet. Let someone else find it. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. Either way, she'd be safe. Rachel closed her eyes and saw her squadron. 17 faces she tried every day to forget. They died because someone put profit over lives. Because someone made the easy choice instead of the right one. She opened a communication channel to the bridge. Maintenance Tech Kim to bridge. I need to report a critical safety issue in the navigation system. The response came from a Kryn officer, Captain Orvis, whose voice dripped with barely concealed condescension. This channel is for emergencies only. File a proper maintenance report. Captain, someone has tampered with the navigation failsafes. When we hit the nebula, the system will lock up. Silence for a moment. Then laughter. Actual laughter. Tech Kim, our systems undergo rigorous security checks. If there was sabotage, our instruments would detect it. Perhaps human understanding of our technology is simply limited. Rachel's jaw clenched. I'm looking at the code right now. Someone installed a patch that we're about to begin a critical transit. Do not clog official channels with unfounded concerns. If you wish to file a formal report, do so through proper procedures. Bridge out, the channel closed. Rachel sat frozen at her console, staring at the sabotaged code. She had tried. She had done the right thing. If something happened now, it wasn't her fault, except it was. She knew it was. Knowing about danger and doing nothing made you just as guilty as the person who created it. The intercom announced 5 minutes until nebula transit. Rachel pulled up the route through her console. The Veil Nebula was thick here, with pockets of debris from an ancient supernova. Not the worst flying, but it required attention and quick reflexes. With locked controls for 30 seconds, the ship would tumble right into a debris field. Rachel stood up and looked toward the maintenance bay exit. The bridge was 6 decks up. Even if she ran, even if she somehow made them listen, there wasn't enough time to purge the sabotaged code from the system. It would require a complete navigation reboot, and they were already beginning the transit approach. There was only one other option, one she had sworn never to use again. Rachel's hands clenched into fists. 5 years of hiding gone in an instant. Court-martial waiting on the other side if she survived at all. But if she did nothing, everyone on this ship died. Diplomats from a dozen species. Yuki, who brought her coffee and told terrible jokes. Even Captain Orvis with her casual prejudice. She thought about her squadron one more time. About how they never got a choice. Rachel started running toward the bridge, her heart hammering in her chest. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the nebula's outer edge. Sensors would be degrading now. Interference building. Commander Halvos would be relying more heavily on automated systems. The very systems about to fail. She hit the lift and punched the bridge level. The doors closed. The lift hummed upward while Rachel tried to figure out what she would say, how she would convince them. Her reflection stared back from the polished doors. Brown eyes that had seen too much. Hair tied back in a practical knot. Grease stains on her uniform. She looked like exactly what she was, a maintenance tech with no authority and no reason to be believed. The lift doors opened onto controlled chaos. Rachel stumbled out of the lift and into a scene of barely controlled panic. The bridge of the horizon's edge filled with shouting voices in half a dozen languages. Holographic displays flickered with warnings as the ship pushed deeper into the nebula's electromagnetic soup. Nobody noticed her at first. A maintenance tech on the bridge might as well have been invisible. Rachel pushed past a Varani diplomat clutching a datapad and headed straight for the pilot station where Commander Halvos sat rigid in his chair. Commander, you need to switch to manual control right now. Rachel didn't bother with protocol or politeness. There wasn't time. Halvos didn't even look at her. His crystalline fingers danced across the controls while his eyes tracked multiple readouts. Someone remove this human from the bridge. A security officer started toward Rachel. She sidestepped and grabbed the back of Halvos's chair. The navigation system has been sabotaged. In about 20 seconds, you're going to lose all control input. That got his attention. Halvos turned, his face reflecting the warning lights and geometric patterns. You dare interrupt! The displays went red. Every single navigation input froze. Halvos jabbed at the controls with increasing desperation, but nothing responded. The ship continued forward on its last programmed heading, straight toward a dense cluster of metallic debris. What is happening? Captain Orvis appeared beside them, her scaled features tight with barely contained fury. Halvos, report. Systems locked. I cannot override. Halvos's voice had lost its usual arrogance. His hands moved frantically across dead controls. Nothing responds. Rachel watched the proximity sensors. 15 seconds until impact. The debris field was old supernova remnants, chunks of heavy metals that would tear through the hull like paper. She had exactly two choices: watch everyone die or blow her cover so completely that nothing would ever be the same. Not really a choice at all. Get out of the chair. Rachel's voice cut through the rising panic. Halvo stared at her. What? Get out? Rachel reached for his harness release. I can fly us through this, but I need the controls now. You are a maintenance tech. Halvo shoved her hands away. You cannot possibly... Rachel didn't waste time arguing. She grabbed his harness, released the magnetic lock, and physically hauled him out of the pilot's seat. The Deltheory was taller but lighter than a human. He stumbled backward, crystalline limbs flailing in surprise. Rachel dropped into the seat and her hands found the manual controls. They were still locked by the sabotaged code, useless as decorations. But every ship had hardline overrides, physical connections that bypass software. Earth Defense Force pilots trained on them constantly because electronic warfare could compromise any digital system. She reached under the console and found the override panel. Ripped it open with strength born from pure adrenaline. Inside was a mess of optical cables and mechanical linkages. She grabbed the primary flight control cable and yanked it loose from its housing. What are you doing? Captain Orvis's voice was somewhere between horror and rage. You are destroying... The ship lurched sideways as Rachel jury-rigged a direct neural interface to the mechanical controls. The hardline connection was crude, painful, and completely illegal by Council safety regulations. It flooded her brain with raw sensor data and let her feel the ship like it was her own body. The debris field screamed toward them at impossible speed, chunks of metal the size of buildings. Rachel felt the horizon's edge respond to her thoughts, and for the first time in 5 years she was flying again. The ship twisted into a corkscrew roll that threw everyone not strapped in across the bridge. A diplomat's scream cut short as magnetic boots caught him halfway across the room. Rachel ignored the chaos and focused on the debris. She could see the pattern in it, the spaces between the tumbling pieces. Every chunk followed predictable physics, which meant every gap was a potential route. She dove the ship into the heart of the field. Alarms shrieked. Proximity warnings overlapped into a continuous wail. The horizon's edge wasn't a fighter. It was a bulky diplomatic transport never meant for this kind of flying. But Rachel made it dance anyway, sliding through gaps with centimeters to spare. She pulled maneuvers that violated every safety regulation in Council space, trusting her instincts and the feel of the ship's momentum. A piece of debris as big as a house tumbled straight at the bridge. No time to go around. Rachel punched the ventral thrusters and felt the ship drop like a stone. The metal passing so close she could see individual crystalline structures on its surface through the viewport. Then she fired the lateral thrusters and spun them 90 degrees, threading between two more pieces that would have crushed them into paste. Someone on the bridge was praying in a language Rachel didn't recognize. Someone else was being sick. She blocked it all out and flew. The debris field started to thin. Rachel could see clear space ahead, a gap in the nebula where the electromagnetic interference dropped. Just a few more seconds, one more cluster to navigate. She angled the ship through a spiraling pattern, using the gravity wells of larger debris pieces to slingshot around smaller ones. Then they were through. The horizon's edge burst into clear space and Rachel finally let herself breathe. Her hands were shaking on the controls. The hardline connection burned like acid in her skull. She disconnected it carefully and felt the world settle back into normal perception. The bridge was absolutely silent. Every person stood frozen staring at her. Rachel climbed out of the pilot's chair on legs that barely supported her weight. Her vision swam. Hardline connections always left you dizzy and disoriented. Usually there was a medical team standing by to help with the neural feedback. Here she just had to tough it out. Captain Orvis found her voice first. What? How did you... Rachel steadied herself against the console. Someone sabotaged the navigation system. I tried to warn you. You didn't listen. She looked at Halvos, who had pulled himself back to his feet. Check your systems now. The lockout should be over. Halvos moved like he was in a dream. His hands moved across the controls, now responding normally. He pulled up diagnostic logs and his face went through several different colors. There is code here. Modified failsafe protocols. It locked all input for 30 seconds when interference reached critical levels. Someone tried to kill us. Ambassador Telrin stepped forward from the cluster of diplomats. He was Vorani, with intelligent eyes and the kind of calm that came from seeing real danger before. And the human saved our lives. Rachel wanted to laugh. Or maybe cry. She had just done the one thing she swore she would never do again. Every person on this bridge had watched her fly. They had seen skills no maintenance tech should possess. Questions would follow. Investigations, background checks, her false identity was as good as gone. Who are you? Captain Orvis moved closer, studying Rachel with new intensity. Maintenance technicians do not fly like that. Military pilots do not fly like that. What I just witnessed was beyond anything I have seen in 30 years of service. Rachel met her eyes. There wasn't any point in lying now. I'm exactly who my records say I am. Rachel Kim, formerly of Earth Defense Force. I came here to disappear. Guess that plan is finished. Earth Defense Force. Halvos said the words like they tasted bad. You are military, using false credentials to work aboard a council vessel. That is a serious crime. So is sabotage. Rachel kept her voice level. Might want to focus on whoever tried to kill everyone before you worry about my paperwork. Ambassador Telrin moved between them. The human raises a valid point. We have a saboteur aboard this vessel, someone who knows our systems well enough to modify them without detection, someone who wanted this ship to crash in the nebula where debris would destroy all evidence. Captain Orvis's expression shifted from anger to calculation. Rachel recognized the look. The captain was a survivor, which meant she knew when to adjust priorities. You are correct, Ambassador. Security teams will begin immediate investigation. Commander Halvos, I want full system diagnostics on every ship function. And the human? Halvos's voice carried clear distaste. The human remains in my custody. Orvis looked at Rachel with something that might have been respect or might have been suspicion, hard to tell with a grin. Until we sort this situation, you will be confined to secured quarters. Do not mistake me. You saved our lives today, but you also committed fraud. Those things must both be addressed. Two security officers appeared at Rachel's sides. She didn't resist as they guided her toward the lift. What would be the point? She had known this was coming the moment she sat in that pilot's seat. At least everyone was alive. That had to count for something. As the lift doors closed, she caught Ambassador Telrin watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It looked almost like recognition, like he knew something about her that even she didn't know herself. The doors sealed and Rachel was alone with her guards, heading down to whatever came next. Her body ached from the hardline connection. Her hands still shook with excess adrenaline. But underneath all of that was something she hadn't felt in 5 years. She felt useful again. For just a few minutes, she had been a pilot instead of someone hiding from her past. And despite everything that was about to happen, despite the investigations and questions and inevitable consequences, that feeling was almost worth it. Almost. The lift descended through the ship's levels while Rachel tried not to think about military prisons or court-martials. She had bought these people time. Someone aboard was a saboteur, someone who wanted them all dead. That mystery needed solving before anything else mattered. The doors opened onto the detention level. Rachel let the guards lead her to a small cell with a narrow bed and a single viewport showing stars. They left her there without speaking, the door sealing with a magnetic hum. Rachel sat on the bed and put her head in her hands. 5 years of running, finished in 5 minutes of flying. She should feel devastated, terrified. Instead, she just felt tired. A voice spoke from the door intercom. Ambassador Telrin. Do not worry too much, Rachel Kim. I suspect your troubles are about to become very different than you expect. Before she could respond, the intercom clicked off. Rachel looked at the blank speaker, then at the stars beyond her viewport. Different troubles. What did that even mean? She lay back on the bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight she just needed to rest. Rachel woke to the sound of her cell door opening. She sat up fast, military instincts kicking in before her eyes fully focused. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. Ambassador Telrin stepped inside and the door sealed behind him. I thought prisoners did not get private visitors. Rachel rubbed sleep from her eyes. According to the wall chronometer, she had been asleep for 6 hours. Her body still ached from the hardline connection. Telrin settled into the room's single chair with the ease of someone comfortable in any environment. Prisoners do not. But you are not quite a prisoner yet. Captain Orvis is still deciding what to do with you. I asked for a few minutes of her time to speak with you first. About what? My collection of fake credentials. Rachel leaned back against the wall. I know I broke the law. I am not going to pretend otherwise. I already know everything about you, Lieutenant Rachel Kim. Telrin spoke her rank naturally, like he had known it all along. I know about the training accident that killed your squadron. I know about Admiral Stevens and his convenient investigation. I know you have been innocent of those charges from the beginning. Rachel's chest tightened. How do you know that? Telrin pulled a datapad from his jacket and set it on the small table between them. Because I have been tracking you for 3 years. Not to arrest you. To recruit you. The datapad displayed a file with Rachel's real name and service record, but underneath were documents she had never seen. Intercepted communications between Admiral Stevens and a pirate syndicate. Financial records showing payments to the Admiral's accounts. Flight data proving the pirates had detailed knowledge of the squadron's route. You knew. Rachel's voice came out flat. You knew I was innocent and you never told anyone. I did tell someone. I told Earth Defense Force Intelligence. They opened a quiet investigation 18 months ago. Admiral Stevens is currently in military custody awaiting trial. The charges against you have been officially dropped. Rachel stared at him. The words didn't make sense. She had spent 5 years running from a crime she didn't commit, and now this Varani diplomat was telling her it was all over? Why did nobody contact me? Because you disappeared effectively. Earth authorities assumed you fled Council space entirely. They have been searching colony worlds and outer stations. Nobody thought to look for you hiding in plain sight aboard a Council transport. Until you found me. I had advantages they did not. I also had motivation. Telrin leaned forward. Tell me, Rachel, what do you know about the expansion wars? The sudden topic shift made Rachel blink. General knowledge. Coalition of aggressive species tried to take over multiple systems. Lasted about 40 years. Ended 15 years ago with massive casualties on both sides. 27 billion dead. Telrin's voice carried old pain. My wife and children among them. The Krell Dominion started the war, but others joined for territory and resources. By the end, 6 species were fighting over scraps while civilians died by the billions. Rachel didn't know what to say to that. Sorry seemed inadequate. She settled for silence and let him continue. The Galactic Council was formed from that war's ashes. Species agreed to strict regulations. No military buildups. No territorial expansion. Strict quotas on how many ships each species could operate. The idea was to make another war impossible. Sounds reasonable. It was. For a while. Telrin's expression darkened. But peace treaties only work when everyone honors them. There are factions within multiple species who believe the war ended too soon. They think their side could have won if fighting had continued. They call themselves the Supremacy Coalition. Rachel felt cold understanding settle in her gut. The sabotage was meant to kill everyone aboard this ship, me included. The peace summit we are traveling to is important, but it is also a cover. I have been investigating the coalition for 2 years. They know this. They want me dead before I can present my evidence to the council. So you think the saboteur is coalition? I know they are. What I do not know is their identity. Someone aboard this ship has access to critical systems and the skills to modify them without detection. That limits suspects, but not enough. Telrin stood and paced the small cell. The coalition is planning something larger than killing one diplomat. They are going to attack the peace summit itself. Rachel absorbed this information in pieces. A military conspiracy. An assassination attempt that failed. A larger plot still in motion. It was the kind of situation she would have walked away from a week ago. Stay invisible, stay safe, let someone else handle galaxy-sized problems. But she had already thrown invisible out the airlock when she saved this ship. Why are you telling me this? Rachel asked. Because I need a pilot. Someone with skills the coalition cannot predict or counter. Someone who can fly missions into places no sane galactic pilot would dare go. Telrin met her eyes. I need you, Rachel Kim. I am a deserter and a fraud. You are a woman who made the best choice available at the time. Earth has cleared your name. The fraud charges are council law, not Earth law. If I ask Captain Orvis to release you into my custody for matters of galactic security, she will agree. You would be working under my authority, which means council regulations become flexible. Rachel laughed without humor. You are asking me to trade one dangerous situation for another. I am asking you to help stop a war. Telrin's voice was quiet but intense. The Supremacy Coalition has weapons, resources, support from powerful people in multiple governments. If they attack the summit and succeed in killing enough delegates, the council will collapse. Species will retreat to their own territories. Old hatreds will resurface. We will have another war within 5 years. And you think I can stop that? I think you are part of what can stop it. I cannot do this alone. I need people I can trust. People whose loyalty is to what is right instead of what is political. Telrin paused. You saved 400 lives yesterday. You threw away your safety to do it. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Rachel wanted to say no, wanted to tell this Varani diplomat to find another pilot and leave her out of galaxy-spanning conspiracies. But she thought about her squadron again, about how easy it had been for corrupt people to destroy innocent lives, about how many more would die if someone didn't take a stand. What exactly would this mission involve? Telrin smiled slightly. First, we need to identify the saboteur. Then we need to stop them before they can make another attempt. After that, we track coalition operations to their source and gather evidence of the larger plot. Finally, we infiltrate their main base and retrieve data proving who is funding them and what they plan to do at the summit. That is 4 different missions. It is one continuous operation with multiple stages. I will not lie to you, Rachel. This will be dangerous. The coalition has killed dozens of my informants. They have resources we can only guess at. But if we succeed, we prevent a war that would kill billions. Rachel stood and walked to the viewport. Stars drifted past as the ship continued toward the summit station. Out there somewhere were people planning mass murder for political gain. Just like Admiral Stevens had sacrificed her squadron for profit. She had run from that fight once. Let others deal with the consequences while she hid and hoped nobody looked too closely at her credentials. It had kept her alive but left her feeling hollow. Yesterday, for just a few minutes while saving the ship, she had felt like herself again. If I do this, Rachel said slowly, I want some things made clear. First, I am not going back to the military. I help you stop the coalition and then I walk away. Agreed. Second, you keep Yuki and the other humans safe. They are not involved in this and I do not want them caught in crossfire. I will do everything in my power to protect them. Third, when this is over, I want full citizenship rights for humans in council space. Not restricted status. Not support roles. Real equality. Telrin was quiet for a moment. That is beyond my authority to promise. Then make it your goal. You want me to risk my life for the council? The council needs to stop treating my species like we are lesser. We proved ourselves yesterday. Time for that to mean something. You drive a difficult bargain, take it or leave it. Telrin extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. I accept your terms. Welcome to the team, Rachel. Rachel shook his hand, sealing a deal that would probably get her killed. But at least she would die doing something that mattered, instead of hiding in maintenance bays and jumping at shadows. So what happens now? She asked. Now I speak with Captain Orvis and arrange your release. Then we begin investigating crew members with access to navigation systems. The saboteur is still aboard. They will try again. How can you be sure? Because I know how the coalition thinks. One failed attempt means nothing to them. They are patient and thorough. They will wait until we feel safe, then strike again when we least expect it. Telrin moved toward the door. Get some rest. I will return in a few hours with clearance to bring you out of detention. The door opened and Telrin stepped through. Before it could close, Rachel called after him. Ambassador? Why humans? You could have recruited pilots from a dozen species. Why specifically look for me? Telrin looked back with an expression that was hard to read. Because your species fascinates me. You come from a world that tried to kill you every single day. Storms, diseases, predators, disasters. Any sane species would have given up and died. Instead, you thrived. You adapted. You turned hostility into strength. We call it being stubborn. I call it being survivors. The coalition thinks humans are weak because you lack advanced technology. They judge you by the wrong metrics. They do not understand that you are already the galaxy's greatest warriors. You just fight in ways they cannot recognize. Telrin smiled. I have seen your military records, Rachel. You do not just fly ships. You make them part of yourself. That is not something that can be taught. That comes from growing up in an environment where adaptation meant life and rigidity meant death. The door sealed, leaving Rachel alone with her thoughts. She sat back on the narrow bed and considered what she had just agreed to. Hunt saboteurs, infiltrate terrorist bases, stop a galactic war, all with a Varani diplomat she had met less than a day ago. She must have lost her mind somewhere in that debris field. But what choice did she have? Go back to hiding? Spend the rest of her life fixing coolant relays and pretending she was nobody? She had tried that for 5 years, and it had felt like dying slowly. At least this way, if she died, it would be fast. Rachel closed her eyes and tried to rest. Her body needed sleep, even if her mind was racing. In a few hours, everything would change again. She would walk out of this cell and into something that would either save billions of lives or get her killed. Strange how that felt more like coming home than 5 years of running ever had. She dreamed of flying through debris fields while stars exploded around her. In the dream, she wasn't afraid. She was exactly where she belonged. Rachel stood in the briefing room surrounded by people who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Captain Orvis sat at the head of the table, her scaled features locked in an expression of professional displeasure. Commander Halvo stood against the wall, arms crossed, radiating hostility. 2 Varani operatives flanked Telrin, both watching Rachel with cautious curiosity. And there was Yuki, pulled from maintenance duty and looking completely confused about why he was here. Let me be very clear about something. Captain Orvis's voice could have cut steel. I am allowing this only because Ambassador Telrin has invoked emergency security protocols. The moment this situation is resolved, we will address the matter of falsified credentials and unauthorized ship operation. Rachel met her gaze evenly. Understood, Captain. Telrin activated a holographic display over the table. It showed the horizon's edge with crew locations marked in different colors. We have narrowed potential suspects to 17 individuals. All have technical access to navigation systems. All were aboard during the time the sabotage code was installed. 17 is too many. One of the Varani operatives spoke. Her name was Kira, and she had the kind of eyes that missed nothing. We need to reduce that list before the saboteur makes another attempt. I have a question. Yuki raised his hand like he was in school. Everyone looked at him. He wilted slightly but continued. Why am I here? I am just a maintenance tech. You are here because Rachel trusts you. Telrin said it like that explained everything. And because you have worked with most of the suspects. Your observations may prove valuable. Rachel caught Yuki's eye and gave a small nod. He still looked lost, but he sat up straighter. The kid had potential if he stopped second-guessing himself. The sabotage code was sophisticated. Halvo spoke without looking at Rachel. Written by someone with deep knowledge of Delthiri navigation architecture. That limits suspects to those with engineering backgrounds, or someone with access to engineering databases. The other Varani operative was named Len. He looked older than Kira, with scars that suggested he had seen real combat. We should not assume the saboteur wrote the code themselves. The Coalition has resources. They could provide tools to someone with basic technical skills. Rachel studied the suspect list, names and species she mostly didn't recognize, but 3 had maintenance bay access. These 3 work in my section. I can tell you they do not have the skills for this. How can you be certain? Orvis challenged. Because I have watched them work for 3 months. 2 of them struggle with basic diagnostics. The 3rd is competent, but not creative. Writing sabotage code requires understanding systems well enough to break them cleverly. None of these 3 think that way. Telrin removed those 3 from the list. 14 suspects remaining. We could interrogate all of them, Kira suggested. Standard security protocols. And warn the saboteur that we are looking for them. Len shook his head. No. We need a more subtle approach. Let them think we are still unaware. Wait for them to make a mistake. Rachel looked at the holographic ship model. Or we give them an opportunity to try again. Set a trap. Everyone turned to stare at her. Orvis looked like she had bitten something sour. You want to invite another sabotage attempt? I want to control the next attempt. We announce that I will be piloting a shuttle to the summit station ahead of the main ship. Critical security mission. Need our best pilot. Very hush-hush. Make it seem important and time-sensitive. Why would the saboteur care about a shuttle flight? Halvos asked. Because I will be aboard. The human who discovered their first attempt and ruined their plans. If I am investigating, I am a threat. They will want me dead. Rachel pointed to the suspect list. We monitor who accesses shuttle systems before launch. Anyone who installs code or makes modifications gets flagged. We catch them in the act. Telrin stroked his chin, thinking, it is risky. You would be the bait in your own trap. I have been bait before. I know how to survive it. Or we could use a decoy, Kira offered. Someone who looks like Rachel from a distance. Safer that way. Rachel shook her head. The saboteur might verify passenger manifests. They will be paranoid after failing once. This needs to look completely real, which means it has to be real. Orvis stood and paced around the table. Even assuming we catch the saboteur, that solves only one problem. Ambassador Telrin believes there is a larger plot against the summit itself. How does catching one operative help with that? Because we question them. Len said it quietly, but everyone heard the implication. Enhanced interrogation. Methods that weren't pleasant or particularly legal. Rachel felt her stomach turn but said nothing. She had seen interrogations during her military service, had watched prisoners broken down until they told everything. It was effective and terrible in equal measure. She didn't have to like it to understand it might be necessary. If there is a larger plot, time is critical. Telrin pulled up a new display showing the summit station. We arrive in 48 hours. Once docked, security will be split across hundreds of delegates and their staff. The coalition will have their best opportunity to strike. We need intelligence before then, so we run the shuttle trap tomorrow. Rachel traced the route to the station on the holographic display. Quick flight, 2 hours there and back. If the saboteur takes the bait, we grab them and make them talk. If they don't, we still move forward with additional caution. And if they sabotage the shuttle successfully, Orvis asked, if you die, then you know you have a saboteur and can hunt for them more openly. Either way, you get useful information. The room fell silent. Rachel could see them weighing her life against intelligence value. It should have bothered her more than it did. Maybe she had just been a soldier too long. Or maybe saving 400 people yesterday had reminded her that some things were worth dying for. Yuki cleared his throat. I want to go with her. Rachel spun to face him. Absolutely not. You will need a co-pilot, someone to handle systems while you fly. I am cleared for basic shuttle operations. Yuki's voice shook, but his expression was determined. You saved this ship. You saved me. Let me help. You do not have the training for this. If something goes wrong, at least I tried to help instead of hiding. Yuki met her eyes. You think I have not noticed? The way you move, the way you analyze problems. You are not just some maintenance tech who got lucky. You are military through and through. Maybe I am not, but I can still be useful. Rachel wanted to argue but recognized the stubborn set of his jaw. She had looked in the mirror enough times to know what determination looked like. Yuki wouldn't back down, and forcing him would just breed resentment. Fine, but you follow my orders exactly. No improvisation. No heroics. Understand? Yuki nodded eagerly. Understood. Telrin stood. Then we have a plan. I will arrange the cover story and make sure it reaches the right ears. Captain Orvis, I need your cooperation in making this look legitimate. Orvis didn't look happy, but she nodded. I will assign the shuttle and file the flight plan. But Ambassador, if we lose Rachel, we lose our only pilot capable of the kind of flying your mission will require later. I am aware of the risk. Telrin looked at Rachel. Are you certain about this? Rachel thought about her squadron again. About 17 people who died because she hadn't been there to save them. This time she would be there. This time she could make the difference. I am certain. The meeting broke up with everyone assigned to specific tasks. Kira and Len would monitor surveillance on the suspect list. Halvos would coordinate with station security for their arrival. Orvis would handle the official paperwork and make the mission look real. Rachel and Yuki were dismissed to prepare the shuttle and go over emergency procedures. As they walked back toward the maintenance bay, Yuki kept glancing at her sideways. "You can ask," Rachel said finally. "I know you have questions. How did you learn to fly like that? Like the ship was part of your body?" Rachel smiled slightly. "Practice. Lots and lots of practice. And some natural aptitude. Earth Defense Force put me through every training program they had. Combat flying, evasion, emergency procedures. I logged 10,000 hours before I ever saw real combat. That's more than most pilots fly in their entire careers. Earth takes flying seriously. We had to. Our training programs are brutal because our instructors know what space combat actually looks like. No room for error when one mistake kills you and everyone depending on you." They reached the shuttle bay where a small transport vessel sat ready for maintenance. It was a standard council design, not particularly fast or maneuverable, but it would get them to the station and back. Assuming nobody blew it up mid-flight, Rachel climbed inside and started running pre-flight checks. Yuki settled into the co-pilot station and pulled up systems displays. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, verifying every component. "Rachel?" Yuki's voice was quiet. "What happens if we catch the saboteur and they do not talk? What if we cannot stop the attack? Then we do our best with the information we have. We cannot control every variable. We can only control our response to problems as they come." That is not very reassuring. No, but it is realistic. Rachel finished checking the fuel systems and moved to weapons diagnostics. "You ever fire a weapon, Yuki?" "In simulation. Ever for real. Hopefully you will not have to. But just in case, I am going to show you how to use the shuttle's defense systems. Nothing fancy. Just point and shoot if something gets too close." They spent the next hour going over emergency protocols and defense operations. Yuki absorbed information like a sponge, asking smart questions and taking notes on his datapad. He was green, but he wasn't stupid. Given proper training, he might actually make a decent pilot someday. When they finished, Rachel sent him to get rest. Tomorrow would be intense and he needed to be sharp. She stayed in the shuttle, running additional checks and familiarizing herself with every control surface and system response time. This shuttle was sluggish compared to the fighters she used to fly. No combat maneuvering, no advanced weapons, just basic transport functionality. If the sabotage worked, she would have very limited options for survival. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight she could only prepare and hope it was enough. Rachel settled into the pilot's seat and closed her eyes, visualizing the flight path to the station. Every potential complication, every emergency response. She ran mental simulations until they became automatic reflex. By the time she finally left the shuttle, she knew it as well as she had known any fighter in her squadron. Walking back to her temporary quarters, Rachel passed crew members who now recognized her. Word had spread about the human who saved the ship. Some looked at her with respect, others with suspicion, a few with fear. She ignored them all and focused on tomorrow, on flying into a trap while hoping to catch whoever was trying to kill them, on questioning a terrorist and preventing a war. Just another day in the life of someone who should have stayed hidden. Rachel reached her quarters and collapsed into bed without bothering to change. Her dreams were full of exploding shuttles and debris fields that had no end. Rachel's hands moved across the shuttle controls with practiced efficiency. Beside her, Yuki monitored system readouts and tried not to look nervous. The shuttle bay doors opened ahead of them, revealing the star-studded darkness of space. Somewhere out there, the summit station waited. Between here and there was a trap they had set for themselves. "All systems green," Yuki reported, his voice only slightly shaky. "Navigation locked. Route is clear." "Good. Remember, keep monitoring that navigation computer. If anything changes even slightly, you tell me immediately." Rachel fired the launch thrusters and the shuttle lifted smoothly off the deck. "Here we go." The horizon's edge fell away behind them as they accelerated toward the station. 2 hours of flight time. Rachel kept her attention split between the controls and the sensor displays. If someone had sabotaged the shuttle, the attack would probably come during mid-flight when they were too far from the ship to turn back easily. 30 minutes passed without incident. Yuki fidgeted in his seat, checking and rechecking the same readings. Rachel understood. Waiting for disaster was worse than facing it. At least when things went wrong, you could act. Anticipation just left you stuck in your own head. Talk to me about something, Rachel said. Anything. Just to keep our minds active, Yuki blinked. Like what? Where are you from? How did you end up working on a council transport? Earth, Los Angeles sector. My parents immigrated when I was young, looking for opportunities in council space. Turns out opportunities for humans mostly mean cleaning jobs and maintenance work. Yuki smiled without humor. I thought working on ships would be exciting. Turns out it is mostly fixing things other species break and take for granted. You ever think about going into piloting? I tried. Applied to 3 different flight schools. Got rejected by all of them. Not enough experience. Not the right background. One school told me humans lack the neural structures for advanced spatial navigation. Yuki's voice carried old frustration. Meanwhile, I watch pilots like Halvos make basic mistakes that would get you failed out of any Earth training program. Rachel understood that anger. Had felt it herself when the galaxy looked at humans and saw primitives. The galaxy is going to change its mind about us. Might take time, but it will happen. Because of people like you. Because of people like us. You, me, everyone who proves humans can do more than what others expect. Every human who exceeds their limitations. Eventually, the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. The navigation system beeped. Rachel's attention snapped to the display. A proximity alert. Something small on an intercept course. Too small for a ship. Maybe debris. Maybe something worse. Yuki, verify that contact. Yuki's fingers danced across his console, showing as a navigation marker. Standard council code. It should not trigger proximity alerts unless we get within 50 meters. Should not. But it is. Rachel adjusted their course slightly, angling away from the object. The alert continued. Then escalated. That is not a navigation marker. The object accelerated. No longer on an intercept course, but on a pursuit vector. Rachel saw the energy signature spike and realized what they were looking at. A seeker mine. Old military technology. Small, fast, and programmed to home in on specific engine signatures. Hold on. Rachel threw the shuttle into a hard turn that made the inertial dampeners scream. The mine followed, adjusting its course with mechanical precision. She couldn't outrun it. The shuttle was too slow and the mine was designed to catch military vessels. She had to outthink it instead. Yuki, can you access the mine's programming? I can try. Yuki pulled up hacking protocols on his display. These mines have hardened code. Breaking in will take minutes we do not have. Then we don't break in. We trick it. Rachel dove the shuttle toward the nearest gravitational source, a small planetoid that barely registered as more than a large asteroid. Seeker mines lock onto engine signatures. They compare what they detect to what they're programmed to hunt. If we can mimic a different signature, it might break the lock. How do we do that? By overloading our engines in a very specific pattern. I need you to route power through the port thrusters in 3-second bursts. Maximum output. Should scramble our signature enough to confuse the mine's targeting. Yuki looked terrified but started working the controls. If this does not work, then we die in a very impressive explosion. Now do it. Power surged through the port thrusters in the pattern Rachel specified. The shuttle's engine signature shifted, becoming chaotic and inconsistent. The mine wavered in its pursuit. Rachel used that moment of confusion to dive behind the planetoid, putting solid rock between them and the weapon. The mine didn't follow immediately. Its programming was trying to reacquire the lock. Rachel kept the shuttle hugging the planetoid's surface, using the terrain to break line of sight. She flew into a canyon system, weaving between rock formations at speeds that made Yuki grab his armrests. Rachel, the mine is still tracking us. It is adjusting. Good mines do that. But it needs line of sight to update its lock. As long as we stay in these canyons, it has to guess. Rachel spotted what she was looking for, a narrow gap between 2 cliff faces, barely wide enough for the shuttle. She didn't hesitate. The shuttle scraped through with centimeters to spare on both sides. Behind them, the mine tried to follow. It was smaller, should have fit easily, but it was moving too fast and couldn't adjust in time. It slammed into the cliff face and detonated in a brilliant flash that lit up the canyon. Rachel pulled the shuttle up out of the canyon system and back into open space. Her hands were shaking again. The adrenaline rush of near death left her feeling simultaneously energized and exhausted. That was the sabotage. Yuki's voice was barely above a whisper. Someone planted that mine on our route. Not planted, deployed. Rachel checked the sensors for additional threats. which means someone aboard the ship had remote access to weapon systems. That narrows our suspect list considerably. She opened a communication channel back to the horizon's edge. Telrin's face appeared on the display almost immediately. Rachel, we saw the detonation. What happened? Someone tried to kill us with a seeker mine. Old military grade. I need Kira and Len to check which crew members accessed weapon systems in the last 24 hours. Telrin's expression hardened. Already on it. Get back here. The trap worked. We have our saboteur. Rachel felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. Who? A Kryn technician named Parvin, assigned to weapons maintenance. He accessed the armory system 8 hours ago and deployed a seeker mine from our external storage. Claimed it was a diagnostic test. Except diagnostics don't require arming the mine. Exactly. Captain Orvis has him in custody. We are preparing to question him now. Rachel glanced at Yuki, who looked like he was still processing their near-death experience. We are turning around. Be there in an hour. The flight back was tense but uneventful. Rachel kept the shuttle on high alert, but no additional threats appeared. Whoever Parvin was, he had played his only card. Now it was time to make him regret it. They docked in the shuttle bay where Telrin waited with Kira and Len. The three of them looked grim. Rachel climbed out of the shuttle on legs that felt more steady than they should. Yuki followed, pale but determined. The interrogation has already begun, Telrin said without preamble. Parvin is not cooperating. Captain Orvis is handling it personally, but she is limited by council regulations on prisoner treatment. Regulations that the coalition doesn't follow. Len's voice was flat. We could be more persuasive. Rachel knew what he was suggesting. Part of her recoiled from the idea. Another part, the part that had almost died to a seeker mine, wanted answers regardless of the cost. What do you need from me? Your presence? Parvin knows you survived. Seeing you alive might shake him, make him realize his failure and that he has no leverage left. Telrin started walking toward the detention area. Come, time is running out. They made their way through the ship's corridors. Crew members stepped aside when they saw the group, recognizing the tension that preceded something serious. Rachel caught sight of her reflection in a polished bulkhead. She looked tired, dangerous. Nothing like the maintenance tech who had scrubbed coolant systems 3 days ago. The detention area was sealed behind multiple security doors. Captain Orvis met them outside the interrogation room. He has admitted nothing, denies all knowledge of the mine, claims the system logs are fabricated. Let me talk to him, Rachel said. Orvis raised a scaled eyebrow. You are not trained in interrogation. No, but I am the person he tried to kill. Sometimes that matters more than training. Telrin nodded to Orvis, who reluctantly stepped aside. Rachel entered the interrogation room alone. Parvin sat shackled to a chair, his Kryn features set in stubborn defiance. He looked at Rachel with barely concealed hatred. You should be dead. His voice was filled with venom. Disappointed? Rachel pulled up a chair and sat across from him. I bet you are. You picked a good mine. Military grade, properly armed. Should have worked. Except you forgot one thing. What? You forgot that humans are really, really good at not dying. Rachel leaned forward. We come from a world where everything tries to kill us. Storms, diseases, predators, even the weather is hostile. You know what that teaches you? How to survive when survival should be impossible. Parvin said nothing, but something shifted behind his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe, or fear. The coalition sent you, didn't they? Told you to kill the diplomat. When that failed, they told you to kill me before I could investigate further. How am I doing so far? I have nothing to say to you. That is fine. You do not need to say anything. The station security will go through your personal effects, your communications, your financial records. They will find the connection to the coalition. They always do. The only question is whether you cooperate now and get leniency, or stay silent and face full punishment. The coalition does not leave trails. You will find nothing. Rachel smiled without warmth. Then you have nothing to worry about. Except I am going to stop them anyway. I am going to find their base, retrieve their plans, and prevent whatever attack they have planned for the summit. And you are going to sit in this cell knowing you failed, knowing that a human, a species you probably think is inferior, ruined everything your coalition worked for. She stood and walked to the door, paused with her hand on the panel. Last chance, Parvin. Tell us what you know. Help us stop them. Maybe that earns you something better than spending the rest of your life in a maximum security prison. Parvin was quiet for a long moment. Rachel could see him wrestling with the decision. Loyalty versus self-preservation. Fear of his handlers versus fear of consequences. Finally, he spoke. The asteroid field. Sector 773. The Coalition has a base there. Hidden in the rocks. That is where they coordinate operations. Rachel turned back. How many people? I do not know. Maybe 50. Maybe more. They keep cells separate. I only met my handler. What is the attack plan? A singularity bomb, planted somewhere in the summit station, set to detonate during the opening ceremonies. It will collapse the station into a black hole and kill everyone aboard. Rachel felt ice in her veins. A singularity bomb was theoretical technology, incredibly illegal, capable of destroying entire stations or small moons. When? I do not know exactly. Soon, within days. Telrin's voice came from the intercom. He had been listening. Where is the bomb now? Already aboard the station. Planted months ago during construction. Waiting for the activation signal. Parvin slumped in his chair, looking defeated. That is all I know. I swear it. Rachel left the interrogation room and found Telrin, Kira, and Len waiting. Their expressions confirmed they had heard everything. The situation was worse than they thought. Not just an attack to plan for, but a weapon already in place. Rachel stood in front of the holographic display, showing the asteroid field in Sector 773. Dense, chaotic, filled with magnetic interference that made sensors unreliable. Exactly the kind of place you would hide a terrorist base if you wanted to stay hidden. Also exactly the kind of place that killed ships. We have maybe 30 hours before the summit begins. Telrin pointed to the timeline. If we are going to stop this, we need to move now. Infiltrate the base, find their control systems, and disable the bomb remotely. Or find out where the bomb is and disable it directly, Kira suggested. Less chance of them having backup activation methods. The station is enormous. Len studied the station schematics. Searching it would take weeks. We need the location from the Coalition base. Rachel traced the approach vector through the asteroid field. Getting to that base is going to be the hard part. That field is worse than the debris we flew through before. Magnetic storms, gravitational anomalies, and rocks moving at unpredictable velocities. Most pilots would call it suicide, but not you. Telrin's statement wasn't a question, but not me, Rachel admitted. I can get us there, but we will need a small ship. Fast and maneuverable. That transport shuttle is too bulky. I can arrange something. Captain Orvis had joined them in the briefing room. We have a scout ship in cargo. Fast shielded armed. Originally meant for system reconnaissance, but it should serve your purposes. How many can it carry? 4 comfortably. 6 if you squeeze. Rachel looked at the team. Telrin, Kira, Len, me, and Yuki, that's 5. Anyone else would just be extra bodies in a tight space. Yuki is not trained for combat operations, Kira pointed out, not unkindly. No, but he is good with systems. If we need to hack Coalition computers or disable their security, he will be useful. Rachel met Yuki's eyes across the room. If you want to back out, nobody will blame you. Yuki straightened his shoulders. I am in. You saved my life. Time for me to return the favor. It is settled then. Telrin began pulling up data on the Coalition base. Parvin provided some intelligence on their layout. Main operations center in the largest asteroid. Defensive platforms scattered throughout the field. Roughly 50 personnel, mostly technical staff and security. They are not expecting an attack. They should be. Len checked his weapons. After Parvin failed to report in, they will know something is wrong. Which means they might accelerate their timeline. Rachel felt the pressure of limited time pressing down. We leave in 2 hours. Captain Orvis, can you have that scout ship ready? Already being prepped. Orvis studied Rachel with an expression that had shifted from hostility to something closer to respect. You're certain about this? Asteroid fields like that one have destroyed military vessels with experienced crews. I am certain I would rather die trying than sit here, knowing billions of people will die if we do nothing. Orvis nodded slowly. Very well. I will provide what support I can. Once you are inside the field, you will be on your own. Communication will be impossible through that interference. The meeting broke up with everyone assigned to preparation tasks. Rachel headed for the cargo bay where the scout ship was being readied. It was smaller than the shuttle, sleeker with visible weapons mounts and reinforced shielding. The kind of ship meant for dangerous work. A technician was running final diagnostics when Rachel climbed aboard. The interior was cramped but functional. Pilot and co-pilot seats up front, 3 passenger stations behind. Minimal comfort but maximum efficiency. Rachel settled into the pilot's seat and began familiarizing herself with the controls. Different layout than Earth ships, different response times, but the fundamentals were the same. Thrust maneuvering navigation, she could work with this. Yuki arrived first, carrying equipment packs. Kira gave me hacking tools and communication gear. Also some weapons. I have never fired a real gun before. Hopefully you will not need to, but keep one close just in case. Rachel continued her pre-flight checks. How are you feeling? Terrified. Excited? Not sure which one is stronger. Yuki loaded the equipment into storage compartments. Is it always like this? Rushing into danger with barely any plan? No. Usually there is more planning and less rushing. But sometimes situations do not give you time to be careful. You just have to move and adapt as you go. Telrin boarded next, followed by Kira and Len. The Varani operatives moved with the efficiency of experienced soldiers, stowing gear and checking weapons with practiced ease. Telrin took the co-pilot seat while the others strapped into passenger stations. Everyone ready? Rachel's hands moved across the startup sequence. Last chance to back out. Nobody is backing out. Kira's voice was firm. Let us go stop a war. Rachel fired the engines and the scout ship lifted smoothly. Captain Orvis had kept the cargo bay depressurized and open to space, allowing them to launch without delay. Rachel accelerated hard, pushing the little ship to its limits as they raced away from the horizon's edge. The asteroid field appeared on long-range sensors like a wall of chaos. Rachel plotted their approach vector and felt her pulse quicken. This was going to be intense even by her standards. Everyone make sure your harnesses are tight. This will get rough. They hit the outer edge of the field at high speed. Immediately, sensors went haywire from magnetic interference. Rachel switched to visual flying, using cameras and her own instincts to navigate between the tumbling rocks. The scout ship was nimble, responding to her inputs faster than the shuttle had. She used that agility to slip through gaps that looked too small, trusting her ability to read trajectories. Gravitational anomaly ahead. Telrin called out readings from his sensors. Pulling left. Rachel compensated, using the anomaly's pull to slingshot them around a massive asteroid. The scout ship groaned under the stress but held together. Behind them, several smaller rocks collided where they had been seconds before. The asteroid field grew denser as they penetrated deeper. Rachel fell into the zone where thought and action merged. She stopped analyzing and started feeling. Every rock had momentum. Every trajectory was predictable if you understood the physics. She wove through the chaos like threading a needle at high speed. Defensive platform ahead. Len's voice was tense. Armed and active, Rachel saw it. A coalition weapons platform anchored to a large asteroid. It swiveled toward them, energy weapons charging. She didn't wait for it to fire. She dove the scout ship into a cluster of smaller rocks, using them as cover while circling around behind the platform's firing arc. Can you disable it? Rachel asked. Give me 10 seconds. Yuki was already working his console. Their security is minimal, overconfident. The platform's weapons went dark. Yuki had hacked its targeting systems and put it into diagnostic mode. Rachel flew past it before anyone at the coalition base could notice the intrusion. Nice work. Rachel meant it. Keep an eye out for more platforms. They will have overlapping coverage zones. They navigated through 2 more defensive platforms using similar tactics. Yuki disabled each one remotely while Rachel kept them moving too fast to track. The base itself came into view. A massive hollowed-out asteroid with docking ports and power signatures visible on the surface. That is bigger than the intelligence suggested, Kira observed. 50 people could not operate a facility that size. Parvin did not know everything. Len checked his weapons again. Expect more resistance than anticipated. Rachel brought the scout ship in low and fast, hugging the asteroid's surface to avoid detection. She found a small maintenance port away from the main docking bays. This looks unguarded. I am setting us down here. The scout ship settled onto the asteroid's surface with barely a shudder. Rachel shut down the engines but left systems on standby. Stay alert. We might need to leave quickly. They exited through the airlock wearing environment suits. The Coalition base loomed above them, all industrial architecture and functional design. Len used a plasma cutter to breach the maintenance port's outer door. Inside was a dark corridor lit by emergency strips. "Stay quiet. Stay together." Telrin took point with Len. Kira covered the rear. Rachel and Yuki moved in the middle, weapons ready but hoping not to need them. They moved through the base in near silence, following signs toward the operations center. Twice they encountered Coalition personnel and had to hide inside corridors. Once, a patrol passed so close Rachel could have reached out and touched them. The operations center was behind a secure door. Yuki worked on hacking it while the others watched for patrols. The door clicked open after tense minutes, revealing a room full of computer terminals and holographic displays. "Nobody here." Kira swept the room with her weapon. They must be confident in their security, or they are all preparing for the attack. Telrin moved to the main console. "Yuki, can you access their systems?" Yuki slid into the operator's chair and his fingers flew across the interface. No encryption. They really did not expect anyone to get this far. "I have access to everything. Find the bomb's location." Rachel watched the door. "Quickly." "Got it. Summit Station, Level 42, Section Gamma. Hidden in the environmental systems. Activation signal will be broadcast from here during the opening ceremony." Yuki downloaded the data. "I can disable their transmitter. That will prevent them from triggering it remotely." "Do it," Telrin ordered. Yuki worked the controls. On the displays, systems began shutting down. The transmitter went dark. But alarms started blaring throughout the base. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "They know we are here." Len moved to the door. "We need to leave. Now." They ran back the way they came, no longer worried about stealth. Coalition security poured into the corridors, weapons firing. Energy blasts scorched the walls around them. Rachel returned fire, not aiming to kill but to create covering fire. They fought their way back to the maintenance port. "Get to the ship." Rachel shoved Yuki toward the airlock. "Everyone move." They piled into the scout ship while Rachel fired up the engines. Coalition personnel reached the maintenance port just as she lifted off. Weapons fire peppered the hull, but the shielding held. Rachel punched the throttles and they shot away from the asteroid at maximum acceleration. Defensive platforms came alive, tracking their escape. Energy weapons fired from multiple directions. Rachel flew like her life depended on it because it did. She used every rock, every gravitational anomaly, every trick she knew to stay ahead of the targeting systems. "One platform has a lock," Kira called out. "Impact in 5 seconds." Rachel saw the targeting laser and made a split-second decision. She flew straight at the platform instead of away, gaining speed. At the last possible moment, she rolled the ship and passed underneath the platform so close that warning alarms screamed. The platform's own missile struck it from behind, destroying it in a brilliant explosion. They burst out of the asteroid field battered but alive. Rachel plotted a course straight for the summit station. "Telrin, contact station security. Tell them we have the bomb's location and it needs to be disabled immediately." Telrin sent the transmission while Rachel pushed the scout ship to its maximum speed. Every second counted now. The Coalition might have backup activation methods, might trigger the bomb manually if they realized their plan was compromised. The summit station grew larger on their displays, a massive structure built to host thousands of delegates and their staff. Beautiful and fragile, one singularity bomb would collapse it all into nothingness. "Station security has teams moving to level 42, Telrin reported. "They have bomb disposal experts standing by." Rachel brought the scout ship into the station's docking bay faster than regulations allowed. She didn't care about fines. They ran from the ship to the nearest lift, taking it down to level 42. Station security met them there, a mixed team of species Rachel didn't recognize. The security chief was a tall alien with too many arms. "You are the ones who found it?" "Yes, this way." Yuki led them to Section Gamma, following the map he had downloaded from the Coalition base. They found the bomb exactly where the data said it would be. A device the size of a briefcase hidden behind an environmental control panel. The bomb disposal team moved in with specialized equipment. Rachel and the others waited in the corridor, unable to do anything but hope. 10 minutes passed like hours. Finally, the team leader emerged. "It is disabled. Containment procedures are in place. The threat is over." Rachel felt tension drain from her body so fast she nearly collapsed. Yuki grabbed her arm to steady her. We did it. We did it, Rachel agreed. Telrin stepped forward, addressing the station security. There is a terrorist base in Sector 773. I have evidence of their operations and complete intelligence on their organization. We need to coordinate with Council military forces for an immediate raid. The security chief nodded. I will arrange it. You and your team should rest. You have prevented a catastrophe. The Council will want to thank you personally. Later, after reports were filed and statements given, the team gathered in a station lounge. Rachel looked out at the view of space through massive windows. Ships were arriving for the summit, carrying delegates from hundreds of worlds, all of them alive because 5 people chose to act instead of hide. What happens now? Yuki asked. After all this? Council military will raid the coalition base, Len said. Arrest will follow. Trials. Probably some political scandal when they discover who was funding the operation. And us? Yuki pressed. Telrin smiled. Rachel made me promise something when she agreed to help. Full citizenship rights for humans in Council space. No more restrictions. No more support role limitations. I intend to keep that promise. You think the Council will agree? Rachel asked. After what you did? After you saved thousands of lives and prevented a war? Telrin's smile widened. I think they will have no choice. The galaxy watched you fly through impossible conditions. They watched you infiltrate a terrorist base. They watched you disable a bomb that would have destroyed the station. Humans have proven themselves beyond any reasonable doubt. It was not just me. Rachel looked at Yuki. It was all of us. Yes. But you were the one who could not stay hidden. You were the one who chose action over safety. Telrin stood. The galaxy will remember that. History will remember that. Today, everything changed because one human refused to let fear control her. Rachel thought about her squadron, about how she had run after they died. About 5 years spent hiding and pretending to be someone else. She had thought running was survival. Turned out real survival meant standing up even when you were terrified. Meant helping others even when it would be easier to stay invisible. I want to teach, Rachel said suddenly. If humans are going to have full access to Council space, we need pilots. Good ones. I want to run a flight academy. Mixed species. Best training in the galaxy. That can be arranged, Telrin agreed. I think you would be an excellent instructor. I want to help, Yuki added. I am not a pilot yet, but I can learn, Rachel nodded. Then that is what we will do. Build something better. Train the next generation to be ready for whatever comes. The summit began the next day. Rachel watched the opening ceremonies from a private viewing room. Delegates from across the galaxy gathered to discuss peace, cooperation, and shared futures. They had no idea how close they had come to dying. Maybe that was for the best. Captain Orvis found her there. The Council wants to offer you a position. Commander of their first integrated fleet, mixed species crews. Equal opportunity regardless of origin. Rachel considered it. Command of a fleet, respect, authority. Everything she thought she wanted 5 years ago. But she had changed. Tell them thank you, but no. I have other plans. Orvis looked surprised. You are refusing a command position? I am accepting a teaching position. Someone needs to show the next generation that merit matters more than prejudice. That adaptation beats rigid thinking. That humans have something valuable to offer this galaxy. And what is that? Rachel smiled. We learned to thrive on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned that when everything is hostile, you become impossible to break. The galaxy needs that perspective. Needs to understand that survival is not about being the strongest or the most advanced. It is about being willing to adapt, to help others, to stand up when standing up is terrifying. Orvis extended her hand in the human gesture of respect. Then I wish you luck, Rachel. And thank you for everything. Rachel shook her hand and watched the captain leave. Through the window, the summit continued. Species that had fought wars now talking about cooperation, building futures instead of destroying them. One human had changed history, not because she was special or uniquely talented, but because when the moment came, she chose to act instead of hide, chose to help instead of run, chose to prove that her species deserved respect instead of just demanding it. Rachel turned from the window and headed toward the Flight Academy district. Yuki was already there, reviewing curriculum and planning courses. They had a school to build, students to train, a future to shape. The galaxy thought humans were weak because they judged strength by the wrong metrics. Soon they would understand, would see what it meant to come from a death world where the sky tried to kill you, and the solution was learning to dance with chaos. Rachel arrived at the Academy's future location and looked at the empty space that would soon be filled with training ships and eager students. Here, humans and aliens would learn together, would share techniques and perspectives, would build something better than what came before. She pulled up a holographic display and began designing the first course: basic flight mechanics, advanced combat maneuvering, emergency procedures, crisis management. Everything she had learned through pain and practice. A message came through from Telrin. Council vote was unanimous. Full citizenship rights for humans, no restrictions. Complete equality under council law. The decision would be announced at the summit's closing ceremonies. Rachel read the message and felt something settle in her chest. 5 years ago, she lost everything. Today, she helped give her entire species a future, not through begging or politics, but through action, through proving what humans could do when given the chance. Her squadron would have been proud. She hoped they knew, wherever they were, that their deaths hadn't been meaningless, that she had turned that pain into purpose, that she finally stopped running. Rachel returned to designing the curriculum. She had students to teach, a future to build, and for the first time in 5 years, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged.